Welcome, everybody. It is the Monday edition. This is our Health Talk. We do this every week. John King's right over there. Good morning, John.
Hey, good morning, Peter.
All right, and also joining us here in the studio this morning, Liz Montgomery, who's Executive Director of the Inland Northwest SIDS Foundation, Sudden Infant Death Syndrome, right? And also Dr. Lauren Wilson, a pediatrician at the Community Medical Center. So welcome, ladies. It's good to have you here.
Thank you. We're glad to be here.
So tell us a little bit about yourselves. First of all, you, Liz.
Sure.
I know that you have a story.
I do.
And some tragedy that happened in your life.
So first and foremost, I am a mother to Mason and my daughter Holly. And Mason is the reason for Inland Northwest SIDS Foundation, a nonprofit serving Idaho, Montana, and Washington. He died in an unsafe sleep accidental death 14 years ago.
Oh, my.
And so just knowing that prevention education can definitely save lives. We're working with Lauren at Community and the state of Montana and Idaho and Washington to help educate hospitals and new families on safe sleep practices, according to the American Academy of Pediatrics.
Now, you hail from Idaho, right?
I do.
Okay, so where?
But I was born in Missoula.
Wow!
I know.
I was like, she doesn't smell like potatoes at all.
Well, I guess you can stay.
At Lawrence Hospital. So actually, I was born. I know, right?
All right,
That's why it's pretty special to be working with.
There you go. There you go. All right. Well, that's good to know. All right. So Lauren, tell us about yourself, if you would.
So I'm a pediatrician, and I grew up in Missoula, actually, and have made my way back here about 1.5 years ago, and I'm glad to be working at Community Medical Center, where I volunteered when I was in high school. So I also go way back with Community, not quite as far back as Liz. So part of my job is seeing newborns, and I always talk to families about safe sleep and what that means. And so I was really glad to have Liz help us out in coming up with a script for educating families, but also training our staff members and how we educate how we educate families, but also how we model safe sleep in the hospital environment.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting. I walked in on their conversation in the atrium out there, and they were talking about how wondering if they were going to pass. When do we get our credentials? And apparently, like, the whole staff is being trained on how to teach people how to sleep.
Yeah, 140 I think staff members, and we ended up with, I've been over here twice, and we've provided 16 2-hour trainings. So, yeah, we just need to make sure all of our healthcare providers are also following the American Academy of Pediatric guidelines.
So let me ask you this. So you do a nonprofit.
Yes.
I'm a little worried that hospitals don't already know this information. Break it down for me. Why do you have to exist?
Because I think a lot of times our hospital providers might not get the updates. I mean, sometimes the American Academy of Pediatrics will update something. Well, they update a lot, right, Lauren?
They do. They update all their guidelines at least every 5 years and sometimes more often. And we usually read through those, but it takes kind of modifying your script and your teaching every time. So it's good to have a mechanism for which we stay updated.
Well, now, allow me to jump in here. Now, from what I understand from the photos that I've seen from websites like yours, the proper way for a baby to sleep is on his back, okay, without blankets or pillows, in a good crib that has enough padding around so they can't get stuck on the slats. Is that it? Or, am I right?
No.
Okay. What is
it?
You're close up until the last point.
You're doing really good.
You're out. Okay, so go ahead.
So, a lone back crib,
Okay.
ABCs of safe sleep.
All right.
Babies sleep alone in their own crib. So, not in the adult bed, not on a couch, not in a recliner, not in a swing or a car seat, unless we're driving, of course. And then on their backs, always on their backs, never their sides of their tummies.
I got that right.
Okay, yep,
Right.
you did really good on that. In their crib. So
Okay.
their crib where they're sleeping is really important. You can't have anything that might be a suffocation hazard.
Right.
So those crib bumpers that you just referred to, we got to get those out.
Okay.
Yeah, because they might roll into them and they might obstruct their
They
breathing.
look real cute, but they're
They
not.
are
no,
cute.
but
Yeah.
see, the bumpers are in there because what if you have an old crib that the slats are just wide enough for the baby to fit their head in, and you know what I mean? So
Totally. And that's why crib bumpers were invented.
Okay,
is
yeah,
because
right.
the crib slots were so far apart that babies were getting injured.
you got to remember,
severely
my
injured.
kids are 30 years old.
Right,
Okay.
absolutely. So, yeah,
Like,
so
most people weren't even sleeping above the
Right.
floor when
Right.
Peter was
and so
doing this.
crib standards, because of those injuries, cribs are very highly regulated. The manufacturers are highly regulated on those cribs, and they have to be really safe. And so we don't have to worry about those injuries anymore. A bump on the head maybe, but
well, let me ask you this. You said when we were talking earlier that something like 90% of the SIDS cases can be put into one basic box. And then there's more. But for a long time, including Peter's life and when I was younger, when having my first kid, most of these deaths were put into just the SIDS category. So can you break down, the different types of SIDS for us real quick?
Sure. Actually, so what we need to break down is a term called SUID. So sudden unexpected infant death. And sudden unexpected infant death, and this is according to the CDC, so Center for Disease Control, SUID can be broken down into 3 categories, and SIDS is one of those. SUID unknown is one of those categories, which means we can't call, so a true SIDS death is when a baby's found dead on its back in a safe sleep environment. So there weren't any risk factors whatsoever. We've done a really good investigation on this death, and we know that there's nothing, no accident has happened here. SUID unknown is a category that infants get put into because maybe there was a possibility of a suffocation or a possibility of an overheating death. And so the coroner or medical examiners will label the SUID unknown because it could have been a possibility. And then we have our ASSB, which is accidental suffocation, strangulation in bed. And so that is our rollover deaths, and those are our suffocation deaths that we know that that's what happened to the baby. Those are overheating deaths. So there's 3 categories. And what we know now, research is showing us much better research is showing us that these deaths and our death scene investigations have been much better. We're not just calling every infant death SIDS anymore. We're getting much better as a nation of determining what's really happening to these babies.
Go ahead, Lauren.
And as we're getting better at categorizing, just to go with what Liz is saying, we're better at also defining what the risk factors are for infants to die unexpectedly. And that's where we come to the 90% figure that you were talking about, is about 90% of those are thought to be preventable by infants sleeping in a safe environment.
So 90% of these and by the way, I've been a parent, or I still am, but when I was a parent of my first infant, right, you have these nights where you just wake up afraid that they're going to suddenly die, because you hear about kids suddenly dying in their beds. I remember with Naomi, my firstborn, you just like sitting there waiting to hear her either cry or breathe. And I wasn't sleeping either way, because if she wasn't crying, I was freaking out that she wasn't crying. So I guess when it comes to it, I guess we're going to probably have to do this after the break.
We need to take a break.
But maybe after the break, you can go into some of the basic safe practices that maybe we lost along the way because Peter and I aren't keeping up with the CDC memoranda.
So that parents can actually get some sleep without staying up all night worrying about it. So we're going to come back, because everybody needs sleep. The babies need sleep. Mom and dad really need sleep. And
well, I'm not sure Peter needs sleep. Kind of go without sleep.
You're talking to a guy that gets like 8.7 minutes of sleep a night. So but anyway, all 4 of our lines are open. If you have a question or a comment, maybe you have your own experience, give us a call, 721-1290. We have 4 lines open. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back on Health Talk. 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. Talking with Liz Montgomery, Executive Director of the Inland Northwest SIDS Foundation, Dr. Lauren Wilson, Community Medical Center pediatrician. You got to repeat your question there, John.
Yeah, so what are some of the things that we do that make an unsafe environment? You mentioned like what a good environment looks like, but there's lots of things, like for example, some of the stuff I did as a parent. I had this special wrap. Right? I would wrap my daughter up in a blanket, and she would go to sleep. And now I'm getting the sense that by putting that blanket on her, I almost killed her.
What you had was probably one of those Velcro swaddle blankets, right? And those are things that are absolutely okay to use. They're not loose bedding.
Right.
So when you use those, you want to pay attention that they're wrapped kind of below the level of the shoulder. You can wrap arms in or out in a young infant. You want to make sure that it's loose around the hips.
Not like a mummy or anything like that.
Yeah, not like a bummy.
Yeah.
That's not your goal.
Okay.
A little too tight, because we wanted to be able to breathe.
Sure.
And then also with swaddling. So swaddling's okay with a swaddle sack or
But
really
but
light
not
muslin
but not
blanket.
lying in a manger. That's not
No.
very safe. Okay.
No, probably
Okay,
not. And-
sorry.
But the really important thing we need to remember about swaddling is that as soon as your baby shows any signs of rolling, we need to unswaddle the arms because we don't want a swaddled baby to end up on their bellies, because I'm sure she was pretty tricky in her sleep, wasn't she? You'd come in and she'd be on her tummy and you're like, hey, I put you on your back. And so we really want to make sure that swaddle, it's probably around 8 weeks of age that we want to start unswaddling those
Oh, really?
arms. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So when it comes to that first rollover moment, I mean, should parents be freaking out and making sure they flip them back over all the time?
No, that's not what we want you to do. You need to get your sleep as well. So if the baby
Don't hover, right?
has
Right.
fallen asleep and then flipped over, then that's okay. You don't need to go in and flip your baby back every time that happens. The important thing is to lay the baby down on his or her back at the start of sleep.
Okay.
So if, let me just
Phrase.
yeah, exactly. So,
Go for it.
If your baby's rolling front to back and back to front and your baby flips,
Correct.
you can leave them.
Yes.
But if your baby can only roll one way and they're not strong enough to push themselves back over on a consistent manner, then you do need to roll them over if you see them. But we definitely don't want you standing over the crib watching that.
It sounds like baby gymnastics. Like, you can
Totally.
flip. You're good to go.
Totally.
Onto the silver medal.
Tell you what, we have a caller, so strap on your headphones here. I believe this is Stephen. Stephen, you're on with our guests, Liz and Lauren. Hi.
Good morning, everybody.
What's up?
I have a comment. I'm not sure, can't remember where I read it, but there was a thing about a baby in a box. Some place was handing out boxes for your baby to sleep in, and essentially it didn't allow them any room to turn or roll, and they would basically just stay in that position all night.
Okay. Well, thanks, Stephen. So, baby in a box. I've never heard of that. What is that?
Yeah, so thanks, Stephen, for calling in. Great question. It's been all over the media about baby boxes. Actually,
It just sounds weird.
yeah. Right. Okay. So we have to remember. So in Finland, this actually came out of a practice in Finland that for the last 75 years, the country has been handing out boxes with all sorts of goodies in them for the new baby. So, but the intention, and actually I just got back from a conference in Pittsburgh with the American Academy of Pediatrics, and the doctor from Finland was here and said, no, we don't want babies sleeping in these boxes. This isn't where our data. And Finland has one of the lowest infant mortality rates in the world. And so we have companies here in the United States that are taking that idea of a cardboard box and sleep in Finland and making a connection to that and trying to sell those boxes. And so, but here in the United States, we have very high standards from the Consumer Product Safety Commission. Remember, we were talking about cribs earlier. And the box just does not meet those safety standards. What's recommended is maybe a pack and play or a bassinet or a cradle or a crib that have very important safety standards for a sleep environment for an infant.
Now,
Wait, real quick. What is the name of these cardboard boxes people are making money off of?
I'm not sure what the name is. I think Baby Box might be one of them. But they really are just a box. We worry about fire hazard, water hazard. If they get wet, what about
cardboard can shred.
they're cardboard.
Yeah.
And so in the breathable, they don't have breathable sides. And really, like in an emergency situation, that might be okay. But we really need to stick with sleeping devices where it's met certain safety
It
standards.
literally is just a cardboard box
Yep.
with even handle holes.
Yep,
Like,
yep.
you could get this at Costco
Yeah. So remember,
for free.
and Lauren and I were talking about this earlier, that just because something's sold doesn't mean it's safe for your baby.
Yeah, all the cute baby bumpers that you see for sale, we really don't recommend that those are used in any infant
Sure.
under a year of age.
Right. Let me ask you this. Now, this is turning a little bit more serious. When a couple or a parent experiences a SIDS death,
Yep.
at what point does it become a matter for law enforcement? I know it's tragic. I can't imagine anything worse happening to a young family. But at what point does the hospital say, you know what, this is a little bit more beyond the pale? And it's got to be a tremendously sensitive area.
It is. It really is. So immediately with the death of an infant, it's a police investigation.
It's called an unattended death.
Absolutely.
Right.
It's a police investigation. No matter what happened, they have to figure out what happened to this baby. And so the police are identified immediately.
Sure.
And so they're supposed to be doing a very thorough death scene investigation to make sure that we're ruling out an accidental sleep-related death or an abuse. I mean, it could be anything until they have, that information.
And
so
these,
it's immediately.
And these folks have been trained, I'm
Yes.
sure, by organizations like you to be able to spot the signs and
Yes.
make sure that this isn't anything criminal.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Yep.
So you go around to hospitals and you see where hospitals are getting it wrong.
Yes.
What is the most common mistake that hospitals make?
I would say putting babies at an incline, tipping the bassinets so that babies sleep at an incline. When we know that can be dangerous because babies can fall forward, exactly, and end up at the bottom of the crib. Maybe not necessarily in the hospital that could happen, but if we're modeling that in the hospital and parents go home and put their crib at an incline or put their baby, sleeping at an incline, which is a huge risk for an accidental death.
I know why they're doing that. Because when all the family comes to look at the babies, if they're flat, you can't see. But if they're
Right. Yeah.
oh, look
Yeah,
at that, that's
It
my
makes-
baby. Look
Right,
at it.
right.
Does that make sense at all, or what?
Probably. I mean, I don't know,
It's
Lauren.
not just because the Instagram looks better. It's actually because hospitals are used to taking care of very premature infants. And
Right,
some
right.
of them do have medical reasons to be at an incline. And so
Sure.
we've kind of extrapolated that to a lot of infants that, are closer to going home from
So
the
it's not
hospital.
for display
and are
purposes.
medically stable. It's not, unfortunately, no.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
But I think
Yeah.
to answer your question, I think that's probably the most common thing. And then using too many blankets, maybe, or just not, or being afraid to talk to parents. Like, okay, let's get these stuffed animals because when your new baby's born, you get tons of cute little stuffed animals and things that you want to put in that bassinet for Instagram. And then making sure, that nurses and pediatricians aren't afraid to say, hey, let's go ahead and take those out. They could be a danger to your baby.
With that, we need to take another break. We still have 4 lines open. If you want to talk about this very sensitive, but this is a very important topic. We'd love to hear from you. 721-1290 is our number. We're coming right back. All right, we are back on Health Talk. Health Talk Back is coming up in a few minutes. Let's quick get a phone call in and strap your headphones on there, ladies, if you don't mind. Mark, very quickly, what's your question for our guests, Liz and Laura?
20 years ago, I was visiting my sister, and she's, my brother-in-law and my sister are cat fanatics, and they just had a baby, and they had 2 other kids, and they're all in the same room. And the older kids, they let the cats crawl up in bed with them and sleep with them. And I was worried about the little 2-month-old baby. She said, no, the cats won't hurt anybody. So
Okay, well,
is it appropriate for cats to...
Let's find out about that. Thank you, Mark. Go ahead, Lauren.
Yeah, we definitely would recommend keeping the cats or any other pets that can get up in a bed with the baby out of the room because those can be risks. But to the point about all sleeping in one room, it's actually one thing that has been really protective against SIDS and sudden unexpected infant death is to have the baby sleeping in the room with the parents for at least 6 months and up to a year. That seems to be a big protective factor. So that's actually a good thing.
What about sleeping in the bed? What about sleeping in the same bed with mom and dad?
So bed sharing, as we call it, is one of the risk factors for SIDS and suffocation deaths. And we really recommend that people are vigilant because it's easy to fall asleep in bed with your baby if you're feeding, giving a bottle, or nursing, and put the baby actually back into the bassinet or crib or safe sleep surface after the feed is over. So that's one way that families can get in trouble. Another thing that we see is, people often take medications like antidepressants or pain medications or sleep pills or drink alcohol or take other substances and then fall asleep in bed with the baby. And that's a huge, huge risk factor. And that's something that we really want to avoid at all costs.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then on top of that, so we get about 4,000 sudden unexpected infant deaths in the nation every year, which is our number one cause of infant death from 1 month to 12 months of age.
Do we know what it looks like in Montana?
We're definitely higher in Montana than the national average, but over half of those 4,000 deaths occur in the adult bed. So really, bed sharing is one of the highest risk factors for accidental death.
What about sleeping in a sling?
Yeah. So go ahead.
So when you have an infant in a sling or a carrier, it's really easy for their head to kind of flop over, for their face to be up against your body or up against the fabric, and for them not to be able to breathe. So what you want to have is visibility. You want to see the baby's face at all times and make sure that their head's in a pretty neutral position. And if you've fed, definitely reposition the baby, clear the face, and keep your eyes on the baby every now and then, because those are environments that can be dangerous for babies.
So we need some contact information for you guys. We're almost out of time. So how do we contact the Community Medical Center, find out more about this?
Yeah, so Community Medical Center's main phone number is 728-4100. We also have a nurse on call, and you can call there asking for information. We'll get you to the right person.
What about your website?
Yeah, so inwsids.org, and then our 24/7 support line for families also who've lost a baby, 208-55-SIDS, and then the number 1.
Thank you for being with us.
You're welcome.
Great
Thank you,
information.
guys.